Have you ever felt this pull? A desire so strong it almost feels like there's some kind of hidden wild creature living inside you? Well, it turns out we all have one. Today, we're going to dive deep into those powerful, hidden desires that are part of every single one of us, the ones that, well, never really seem to die. This idea, inspired by the work of D.H. Lawrence, really hits the nail on the head. This overwhelming desire, this hunger for pleasure, for connection, for life, it isn't something that just fades away as we get older. No, it's a core part of being human, and it stays with us our entire lives, always looking for a way to express itself. And that really is the million-dollar question, isn't it? We've got all this natural, powerful energy inside us, but from the time we're kids, we're taught to tame it, to control it, to make it civilized. We're told to just push it down. So what happens when we do that? Where does all that energy actually go? To really get our heads around this, we've got to turn to one of the giants of psychology, Carl Jung. He actually gave this hidden part of us a name, the shadow. And today, we're going to get specific and explore what he called the sexual shadow. So what is this shadow? Well, according to Jung, you can think of it like a psychological bag we all carry. And into this bag, we stuff all the parts of ourselves that we're told are unacceptable. You know, all the thoughts, the feelings, the impulses that don't quite fit the neat and tidy picture that our family or society expects from us. We shove them down into the dark, into our unconscious, kind of hoping they'll just go away. And right here, you can see the conflict playing out. On one side, you've got society's rules. Be polite, be in control, be good. And on the other side, you've got what's actually in the shadow. Our raw desire for pleasure or greed, our so-called forbidden fantasies. See, the shadow is born from judgment. The moment someone tells us that a natural part of who we are is shameful or bad, we don't get rid of it. We just learn to hide it. And listen, this is the most important part to understand. Pushing this stuff down is not a real solution. Jung warned us that when you try to bury this kind of powerful energy, it doesn't just disappear. Oh no, it festers, it builds pressure, and sooner or later, it bursts out, usually with way more force and in ways that are totally out of your control. Okay, so how can you tell if this is actually happening? How do these hidden desires show up in our everyday lives? Let's walk through 6 really clear signs that a suppressed sexual shadow might be at work. All right, sign number 1. This is a classic, and it's something psychologists call projection. You know, Jung famously said that whatever irritates us about other people can lead us to an understanding of ourselves. So, when you find yourself being really judgmental of someone, maybe for how confident they are, or how attractive, or how freely they live their life, that's a huge clue. You're often attacking a part of yourself that you were forced to push down a long time ago. The second sign is when this internal split gets so wide that a person basically has a secret side. On the surface, this person might look perfect, you know, balanced, polite, super respectable, but underneath it all, there's a whole hidden world filled with shame and forbidden fantasies. Jung saw this as a really dangerous psychological split. That shadow is just waiting for a moment of weakness, for a crack to appear, which is why we sometimes hear about these shocking scandals involving people you'd least expect. Okay, number 3. Have you ever wondered why some people just seem drawn to complicated, unavailable, or even unhealthy partners over and over again? Well, a lot of the time, it's the shadow that's making the choice. If you grew up believing your deepest desires were something to be ashamed of, your unconscious mind might go looking for them in places that feel, well, forbidden or chaotic. You think you're falling for the person, but you're actually falling for your own shadow, which you see reflected in them. You're chasing the parts of yourself you were never allowed to be. A fourth sign can show up not as a big explosion, but as the exact opposite, as a kind of emotional black hole where intimacy just feels empty. This is when intimacy becomes cold, almost robotic, without any real pleasure or connection. Jung had a powerful term for this: mental suffocation. It's what happens when that natural, curious energy of desire gets met with fear or shame early in life. That part of you just learns to shut down. So now, instead of pleasure, all you get is this feeling of detachment. And the fifth sign is the polar opposite of that coldness. This is when the shadow gets tired of being locked up and finally kicks the door down. This is when the shadow just takes over. It shows up as compulsive behaviors, a desperate kind of indulgence that isn't really about pleasure or feeling at peace. It's about a deep, buried need that's erupting out of the darkness. And afterward, people usually feel even more empty because the real issue was never actually dealt with. And finally, the sixth sign. This one is maybe the most profound of all. It's when suppressing this energy starts to drain the very color out of your life. See, Jung believed this sexual energy was more than just physical. It's the raw fuel of creation itself. It's what powers our creativity, our passion, our whole sense of purpose. When we cut ourselves off from it, life can start to feel absurd, meaningless. We just feel discouraged and totally disconnected from who we really are. Okay, so the big question is, what are we supposed to do about it? When this powerful shadow energy comes knocking, we basically have three ways we can respond. So path number one is repression. That's where we just react with shame or fear and shove the feeling right back down into the dark where it came from. Path two is indulgence. This is where we just give in, blindly act on the impulse like a little kid demanding candy. But Jung pointed to a third way, confrontation. And this doesn't mean fighting it. It means consciously turning towards the feeling, not to act on it or repress it, but to actually understand it. And this third path, this is where things get really interesting. This is all about changing your relationship with your shadow. It's about learning how to take something that feels like an enemy and turn it into one of your most powerful allies. So how in the world do you do that? Well, it all starts with a quiet internal dialogue. The second you feel that intense desire or impulse, you just pause. You don't judge it. You don't immediately act on it. You just get curious. You start asking it questions. Hey, where did you come from? What am I really looking for right now? Is this about genuine intimacy, or am I just trying to run away from stress or loneliness? The whole trick is to create a little bit of space between the feeling and the action. Because when you start having this conscious conversation, something almost magical happens. That overwhelming feeling, it stops being this wild animal that's trying to control you. It actually transforms. It becomes a messenger, a teacher. It starts giving you vital information about your deepest needs, your hidden wounds, and the parts of yourself that are just crying out for a little bit of attention. Look, we all have a shadow, every single one of us. The only real choice we have is whether we're brave enough to turn around and listen to what it has to say. So, the question I want to leave you with is this. If you decided to pause and just listen, what is your shadow trying to tell you?